And joining us in studio this morning, all the way from the fourth floor here in the J.P. White building, Matt Bristol with Bristol Law Office joining or back with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
Doing great. How about yourself? How's your weekend?
Oh, it was nice and quiet. Got some work done at the office and the house. How about yours?
Good. About the same. Got some work around the house done and just hanging out and, time with family, things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you and Sean were talking about blowing glass, and I was wondering who the first idiot was that says, let's put this molten glob on the end of a pipe and blow into it.
Yeah.
Who was that guy?
I think it's the same guy that looked at a crab and said, that looks delicious.
Well, I can see that more, if you're starving to death.
It's true. There's a desperation factor there.
If the seagull's eating it, maybe just edible. So I don't know.
Of course, this guy may have been like, man, I wish I could put water in something other than my hand. But it's a lot of those inventions. You always wonder, it's like, who's the first person who thought this was an interesting idea?
Well, I think probably a lot of it was by accident. For example, have you ever made bagels?
I have. I was a bagel baker for a half a minute when I was a teenager.
There you go. You have to boil the bagel. I'm sure that came about by accident.
Yeah. One fell in, probably a boiling water, and,
And we didn't have enough to waste, so let's cook it anyway and see what happens.
Yeah.
And
By the way, that's why they say the New York bagels are the best, because the fluoride, they always claim New York City has great water, so they always say that's why the best bagels are in New York City. They say it's the water, is what I hear.
I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
All I know is I've eaten bagels in New York City, and I cannot dispute the fact that they have the best bagels, because I've had none better since those up there in that region. So,
well, awesome. We need to make a field trip then.
there you go. Well, in this day and age, you can order them online.
That's true.
Of course, you don't get the freshness that you would if you were actually in a bagel in New York City, but
Well, that's true. We've ordered from a deli in New York before a couple times.
I have too, and it's not bad with bagel. I've done bagels and I think seafood once, and it wasn't too. It was expensive as all get out, but pretty tasty. So.
Yeah, I think we did corned beef stuff.
A little delicatessen type.
Oh
stuff.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Get some good knishes shipped. Remember, we're getting off track here. I'm already thinking food and getting going here. But for folks that aren't familiar, Matt joins us once a month, and we talk sage legal advice. Whether it's talking for your business, for your families, usually that information kind of crosses both that line and helps both people's businesses and people's families. But we spent a lot of time talking about that kind of stuff, and of course last month, of course you were with Sean last month, but you were talking a little bit more with the business side of things and protecting assets and things like that. So
we talked about different kinds of business organizations. We talk about that stuff, and then somebody comes in the office, and apparently they don't listen to your radio show because they are like clueless.
See, if they were one of the 7 that does.
But a lot of people do their own stuff, and that's not always the best. Not always the best.
Sometimes you luck out in doing the right. The right thing you did was stump. But especially if you. A little bit of information can be more dangerous than none sometimes. And when people have a little bit. Yeah.
Well, LLCs, for example, limited liability companies, you can go online to the Secretary of State, and online you can fill out the paperwork, and poof, you are one.
Yeah.
Probably LegalZoom, same thing, except they don't tell you how to walk like an LLC, talk like an LLC, so you get the legal protection of the LLC.
Sure.
So I call it the duck speech. You got to walk like a duck and quack like a duck.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't do that, then guess what? Those protections and things that you thought you had, you do not have. So
that's right. We see that a lot, especially when the oil patch went down. A lot of service companies would say, well, my LLC needs to file a bankruptcy. And I'd say, well, once you come in, let's talk about it. And so we talk, and so did you advertise as an LLC? Was it on your letterhead? So you have to put the world on notice. You're an LLC. That's part of walking like a duck, quacking like a duck.
Yeah.
So it has to be, if you got your name on the truck, it's got to say LLC on the truck, and business cards.
I didn't get in an argument per se, but we had a mom and pop business. This was years ago. Mom and pop business owner, wanting their business, and it's an LLC. But they wanted to advertise it, and So I was writing the script for him and making, the thing. And she's like, can you take LLC out of there? I was like, not if you want your protections. And she's
Exactly.
like, and she was kind of insistent that it came out. I was like, you don't understand. Read up on your, and she wouldn't listen to me. And,
Oh, wow.
I was like, well, it's on you at that point. But
Yeah. Here, sign this release, lady. Yeah. That and how you sign contracts is important.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't sign as an LLC. They end up being personally liable on all the business contracts.
yeah.
And that's where we end up like 90% of the time is they didn't sign like a duck.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that lack of attention to detail, I mean, that's the difference a lot of times. And is it when they talk about that kind of stuff, is it like if you do it 90% of the time and miss one, does that still disqualify you? Or like,
As to that particular contract, yeah.
okay, but not maybe in general. Like if you say you had a commercial out there, but all your other stuff had LLC on it, could that potentially put you in trouble?
It depends on whether the other party only heard the radio spot without the LLC.
Gotcha. So it really depends on who's suing them, per se.
Depends on who's suing them. But at some point, somebody's got to come to the business.
Gotcha.
And if you had LLC plastered on the front door, then, hello.
You're covered.
Put you on notice, yeah. So Mike Winters would sign 106.5 LLC by Mike Winters, member.
Gotcha.
106.5 LLC. So it's kind of like having a power of attorney when you say Mike Winters POA for somebody.
Gotcha.
So you have to disclose you're acting on behalf of a different entity.
And this is something you've talked about in the past where you can run into that problem if you have the LLC, but you sign as you, the individual, and not you, the LLC.
Oh, yeah.
You're changing liabilities from the LLC to you. If you don't sign it as Mike Winters on behalf of LLC, and you just put Mike Winters, if this thing goes down, they ain't coming after the LLC. They're coming after Mike Winters because that's who signed it.
That's who signed it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a huge faux pas. We see that a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah. And it seems like something that simple can, it shouldn't be that dangerous, but it just is because if you, and this is kind of why it's about paying attention. Like when your parents or if you join the military and they got you to pay attention to detail so much, this is the reason why, is because of something this simple could literally change someone's life for the worse.
For the worse, yeah.
Or for the better, depending, if you do pay attention to detail.
Well, the corporation's the same way. If it's 106.5 Inc., then you would sign Mike Winters, President, 106.5 Inc. So again, you have to disclose that you're acting on behalf of a corporate entity.
Gotcha. So something that delineates that you are, in fact, the whatever part of the company, not the individual person.
Right. You're not acting on your own behalf. You're acting on behalf of a different. So the law considers corporations and LLCs separate legal entities.
Gotcha.
And that's the source of confusion for a lot of people, which is normal. And that's a normal person. We spent a lot of time on that in law school, hammering that into us, that they're separate legal entities. I had somebody come in the other day. They said, oh, yeah, I got the deed, and, I want to put the deed into the, the separate LLC. And it's like, oh, okay, this is a commercial business. I said, well, I need to see a copy of the deed. So I need who the grantor is. I need a legal description, all that good stuff. And so they had done it themselves, naturally. So the deed was to Mike Winters, a married man, as a sole and separate property, DBA 106.5 LLC. And it's like, that's backwards.
Right.
DBA is an LLC. An LLC is a separate legal entity.
Gotcha.
And so that's just another source of confusion that's pretty normal for folks.
Right.
But if they had just spent the time to talk to an attorney about the right way to do it.
And that's basically, if you're listening this morning, and I know a lot of this can get a little, in the weeds on some of this stuff, but if you take nothing else from this conversation here, it's when you're talking about setting up your business and how you want to set up that business, in which, whether it's a partnership or an LLC or whatever, however you want to go in that direction. but you got to fully understand what you're committing yourself to. And if you take nothing else from this morning's discussion is whenever you're making these decisions, it's good to have a legal representative look over this stuff to make sure you fully understand exactly what you're signing your name to or committing your business or yourself to. And that's unfortunately, most people don't see the forest from the trees on that one. And they're thinking, oh, I'm going to get the keys to my new business and I'm going to get all that going. And I realize that the strings you just attach to those keys by not paying attention to what you're signing. So.
Yeah, there's the whole set of laws that apply to LLC stuff.
Yeah.
And if you don't inquire and educate yourself ahead of time, you're probably going to get an expensive lesson somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
And even though it's, well, I just got this little business, it's no big deal. It's, well, the laws still apply, and you don't act like a duck, you're not going to be treated like a duck.
Yeah. And I know enough to know that ignorance of the law does not excuse you from the law.
That's right. That's right. The I didn't know better doesn't count.
That doesn't matter if it's civil or criminal.
Yeah.
That does not matter. Just because you didn't know doesn't make you exempt from it. So
That defense does not work. No.
now they might cut you a break in sentencing, depending on how good your story is. But but just because you didn't know you weren't supposed to shoot someone doesn't mean you're excused from shooting someone.
Just because you didn't see the speed limit sign doesn't mean you're not getting a ticket.
Yep, exactly. So
Had another client come in, and they had an LLC, and it was a multi-member LLC, and he wanted to dissolve the partnership. And I'm like, I'm confused now. So we got a dog and a cat? How does that work? I said, why don't you come in and tell me about what's going on?
maybe the vocabulary is a little different here or something. But
so it's a multi-member LLC.
Okay.
And when you have multi-members, you have what's called an operating agreement.
Okay.
So the operating agreement basically says this is everybody's job or not everybody's job.
Okay.
So typically there's one person who's the managing member, and that's what the operating agreement says. And it says, or this is how we split the profits. If there's extra expenses, this is how we split them. Usually there's a buyout provision kind of stuff. But nope, they made a partnership agreement with the LLC members.
That's weird.
It is really weird, yeah. So, but that's a common source of confusion where people kind of mix baking soda, baking powder, kind of sounds the same, so it must be the same.
Now, is there any convoluted way where it actually made sense what they did, or?
Well, it was basically an operating agreement,
Okay.
But they called it the wrong name.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I'm not sure how much it'd get them in trouble. And so one of the partners was basically cutting my guy out of the business.
Okay.
And so he wanted to know, well, what could you do? And I said, well, you got to come, one option is always do nothing. May not be a good option, but one option is do nothing. And I said, my concern is who applied for the federal tax ID number and under what name? I said, he says, oh, I got the federal ID number, the EIN. I said, well, was it in your name or the LLC name? And what about the sales tax number? It's called the CRS-1, gross receipts tax. So, I have to collect sales tax and pay sales tax over to the state. And so I asked him who got that. And he said, he got that one. And I said, well, in your name or the LLC name? And he says, well, he wasn't sure. I said, well, that is my major concern, is if that sales tax number's in your individual name and this person goes on and does business and doesn't pay sales tax. I said, guess
they're going to come to her. Yeah.
They're going to come to you because that sales tax number was in your name.
Sure.
And you're going to say, but I wasn't doing any business. They're going to say, we don't care.
Right.
The state's going to say, we don't care. It was your number and somebody was doing business using your number. And so that's my major concern.
Generally, and just in the reality of things, when a scenario like that happens, I know priority one, especially if the other party's looking to go after the money, whether it's a government or another private entity. In those situations when a mistake is made like that, how often does it happen where it really screws the party versus, okay, we understand you made a mistake, we can fix it from here? or what I mean by that is, say you make a clerical mistake like that, but you're part of the solution to it, is what I mean. Like say in this instance, like this person's name and their name, and then they go off and not pay the sales tax, and they come to you, and you're like, I didn't know, but I'm helping you to recover it. Does that often, more times than not, help alleviate your problems per se if you're working? I mean, does that happen pretty often where somebody screwed up something here, but if they're part of the rectification of it, does that make sense? I know I'm trying to be very vanilla without being specific, but being specific.
Well, I don't know. But my advice to this guy was just, first of all, you find out, is it in your name or the LLC name?
Right.
If it's in the LLC name, you're good to go. But if it's in your individual name, then you need to see if you can get it transferred to the LLC.
I just didn't know if it, like in your experience, whether it's private or not, where parties were willing to say, okay, in the spirit of compromise, we realize you made a mistake. We're gonna let you fix this here in exchange for this. Or
usually, the taxing authorities aren't very forgiving.
Okay, I just didn't know if you did something like this, was it be all you're screwed, or a lot of times, if you're honest up front and genuinely made a mistake, they're usually a little bit more working with you on trying to resolve the issue.
I just don't know, because most of the time people, it's very unusual for somebody to say, well, they really owe the tax, I'll help you get it from them.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, in your personal experience, like in cases you've seen over the years and things, where the parties generally amenable to working out mistakes, or were usually someone said, nope, that's where you screwed up, this is where I got you, this is what you're doing for me?
Well, taxation and revenue is pretty serious stuff.
Gotcha.
I'd rather work with the IRS than taxation and revenue.
They're IRS a little more forgiving, if that's possible.
Well, the other problem with this multi-member LLC business is when you do the tax return, there's actually a little box you can check that says corporate or partnership.
Okay.
And in theory, if you check corporate for multi-member LLC and you don't pay your sales tax, the corporation's liable for the sales tax. But if you check partnership, then that means you're going to be individually liable if sales tax isn't paid.
Gotcha.
And so that was another concern for my guy. It was because they had the partnership agreement where they're going to check the wrong box on the tax return.
Okay.
So I said, if it's in your name, you just need to get it out of your name, transfer it, cancel it, do something.
How often or not do a lot of these types of, whether it's deliberate, I mean, the deliberate ones probably see jail time, depending on the severity of it and things like that. But how often or not does it get to that kind of stuff where you're messing up these things like that result in, time behind bars type stuff, not just restitution type things? I don't know. It has to prove. I'm guessing it's the thing is you got to prove that you intentionally were trying to defraud somebody for it to become criminal.
I don't know. I don't do criminal law.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Most of the people that I work with, they small businesses that went under, they didn't pay their sales tax, they didn't pay their payroll tax, but the government tries to collect, but they haven't seen anybody go to jail.
When does it go from civilly to criminally like that? Is when they find out that you actually broke a law trying to not pay your taxes or whatever. I'm just like, you know what I mean? Like, at what point does it become a criminal thing from a civil thing?
My guess would be intent.
Okay.
If you're stupid, okay, there's no intent to commit a crime if you're stupid. Maybe, but tax evasion is illegal.
Gotcha.
Tax avoidance is legal.
Okay.
So if you were to a lot of small business guys, they pocket money, the cash that comes in the front door, and they don't report it as income. Okay, that's tax evasion.
Gotcha.
You also failed to pay sales tax.
Okay. So it's better if you're trying to hide the money and they find it, that's illegal. But if you're just broke and can't pay it, then that's more civil.
Hopefully so, yeah.
And I guess they say rule of thumb or sniff test.
But I did know a couple. There's husband, wife, and husband was in business. They had a sole proprietorship. and wife had a separate job, full-time job. So they go through a divorce, and wife finds out that he hasn't been paying the business income tax.
Uh-oh.
And of course, when it comes tax time and your spouse says sign the return, you just sign the return. Mm-hmm. I haven't met anybody yet that knows how to actually read a tax return. So the IRS comes after her because the tax liabilities were created during the marriage.
Okay.
And the divorce decree, it says he's supposed to pay him, is only effective between them. It's not binding on the IRS.
Okay.
So she says, "What do I do, Matt? What do I do? I don't have that kind of money. It's tens and thousands of dollars." Mm-hmm. I said, "Well, apply for the Innocent Spouse Act." So there's a innocent spouse provision in the IRS code that if you're an innocent spouse, you didn't know what was going on.
Gotcha.
You're not liable for the tax liability.
You can play dumb legally and be off the hook, basically.
So she filled out the application, and they wanted an interview. And I said, she was, "What do I do in the interview?" And I said, "Okay, take a deep breath. Calm down. Okay, so you tell them that you never filed any kind of sales tax report. That wasn't your job, was to file those reports. You didn't file any kind of payroll tax reports. That wasn't your job. You had a full-time job somewhere else. In fact, that you never went to the business to do any business."
So basically just prove you don't have any dealings whatsoever with the business, which sounds like that's what was going on.
Never signed any check to pay any bill, payroll, nothing.
The truth shall set you free.
Well, and so we talked through it. I said, "This is what they want to know. This is what they want to know." Mm-hmm. And so ultimately she was held to be an innocent spouse.
Gotcha.
So that was a happy end.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, and now just to you as curiosity, was it complete lack of knowledge on the spouse's part about why the taxes weren't paid, or was it something nefarious and they were trying to attach the spouse to it?
So the husband?
Yeah.
The husband just wasn't paying.
Gotcha.
Just
dumbness, or just thinking he could save a buck?
He's using it to buy toys and new trucks and four-wheelers and that kind of stuff. I
never claimed to be the smartest man on the planet, not even remotely close, but I am smart enough to know that there is no such thing as a free ride, and when you think you're getting over on someone, it will bite you in the tail sometime. It may be years down the road, it may be decades down the road, it may be next hour, but it will eventually catch up to you at some point. It's just going to happen. I've lived on this earth long enough to know it. You're never going to beat those systems. Even when you think you have, it's going to come back and rear its ugly head some point in your life. So don't do it, and avoid it altogether. And that's true in legal or any other facet of life.
That's true. Yeah. So LLCs, to follow up on that, they are what are called pass-through tax entities. Mm-hmm. Or if you're a corporation and you start life as a corporation, you're what's called a C Corp. And the shareholders elect sub-S status. So again, you'll be taxed as a sole proprietor.
Okay.
So LLCs, sub-S corps are taxed as sole proprietors. So there's some people that report very little income in their business because they want to, quote, pay the tax on it.
Right.
The problem is that's also Social Security and Medicare tax that's being paid on your income.
Okay.
So if you have very little reported income, you're paying very little Social Security and Medicare. And with Social Security, you only get out what you put in.
Gotcha.
So they think they're being clever by hiding all this income and not paying income tax on it, but they're screwing themselves
in the future.
The future, because
you're robbing
Social
basically
Security
future
check.
You to pay you now, basically.
Yeah, your Social Security check is going to be minute.
Interesting.
So people think they're clever, but they're not.
Which, again, I guess is okay if you've planned accordingly to where you don't need to rely on that Social Security later on in life.
Most people aren't that clever.
Exactly. If they're pulling this kind of stuff now, odds are they've got other shenanigans going on in some other facet of their portfolio or whatever here. So, and that's. I'm just genuinely curious, though. Do you have a job because of ignorance or just like, is it people just don't know, or is it like, what's the percentage of people doing something nefarious versus people that just are clueless? Is it like 90 clueless to 10, or I mean, just your opinion, like with your experience?
I've rarely seen somebody who's nefarious.
Okay.
Very rarely. It does occur, but it's just a rare instance.
Gotcha. It's just usually gross negligence or just a complete lack of not knowing what they were doing.
Yeah. So we had a bankruptcy client one time, and most people, they never learn how money works. Their parents never talk to them about money. And
Sure.
we all learn the hard way, and then some people a little bit harder than others. And so most of the time it's just by accident. But we had one couple, and we said, okay, we need your bank statements. And so my paralegal was looking at the bank statements and looking at their pay stubs. And they get paid every 2 weeks, right? So you'd think there'd be 4 deposits. No, there's 8 deposits every month. Anywhere between 6 and 10 deposits.
Okay.
And so it's like, where's this money coming from?
Right. How many jobs you got we don't know about here?
Yeah, and we never got a straight answer where that money was coming from. And so,
of course, most people think drug dealer or something. How'd you obtain this money? Something illegally? Or,
were they selling dope?
Yeah.
Are they stealing it?
Yeah, you like some grand larceny, crime ring.
Yeah, so we ended up firing him as the client. I never got a straight answer.
And they would never give you see that does ring, like, because most of us, of course, we're all humans that watch a lot of movies and TV. We all think it's the Sopranos going on over here or something. It's like, hey, what, you got a garbage business and you're hiding money? What are we doing here?
Yeah, so but without a straight answer, my ass is on the line.
Sure. Well, that's just it. As an attorney, you have to make that, you have attorney-client privilege with your clients and things, but if they're not being forthcoming and honest with you, you can't properly do your job. Therefore, if they want you to do nefarious stuff to defend them, then you're like, no, that's, because at the end of the day, your reputation, your bar, your licensure is on the line here. And if you are doing their bidding and it's illegal, you're the expert in the room. You're supposed to know better versus them, and that's the difference.
Yeah, I have a duty to make and do inquiry. I mean, I have a job. That's part of my duty is do inquiry.
Sure.
And when I started doing it, it was just all suspicious, and it's like, hey, I'm not risking my license for you.
Sure.
I'm out of there.
We're running out of time, and I'm getting down another rabbit hole. But I am kind of curious. Just in your profession, is that something like are most attorneys? I'm not trying to, are most good guys and most but in essence, I mean, are 99.99% of attorneys just like you, or is there a bigger percentage of these, movie type attorneys, the ambulance chaser types and things, or is most of this people are, no, it's just a very slim, it's a loud, small percentage that are the quote unquote, shady attorneys.
Attorneys are human, just like anybody else.
Sure.
And you're formed before you go to law school.
Sure.
So there's a percentage of attorneys who are, rat finks, just like there's any other profession.
Okay. I just TV makes it seem like television and all that makes it feel like there's more of that than maybe there actually is in the world. But then I could be wrong. I have no idea. Well, I mean, you can't turn on TV without seeing 50 lawyer ads on TV and breaks. And you're like, how many of those are legit lawyers versus just a guy trying to, who got a degree at, off online or something? And what I mean?
Well, but again, there's lawyers who made straight A's, and there's lawyers who made, barely passed.
Sure.
So
I know it's a pretty broad stroke I'm painting here, but I'm just curious, is it more rampant than I think, or is it pretty?
So we're in law school, and I forget what class we were in, and I don't even remember what class. But the scenario is you're a jet fighter pilot, okay? And all of a sudden you just flame out, and the engine goes, and you're hurtling towards Earth at the speed of sound. And one option is you're going to crash in the schoolyard, and do you eject, or do you try to glide the plane out away from the schoolyard? And I was the only person that said stay in the plane.
Interesting. Everyone else said, no, you punch out.
Everybody punched out, and school kids got blown up. Yeah. So, what does that mean? I don't know. I mean, that's the Boy Scout in us all. I don't know.
This is true. Be prepared, and in helping others and all of that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's humanity. Like anything else, you're going to have good doctors and bad doctors, good bankers, bad bankers, and good lawyers and bad lawyers. It is what it is. I just didn't like, but in the world we live in television, lawyers and stuff, they're pretty popular to make TV shows out of and things. And so, and of course, those aren't interesting shows unless there's shady people in it. And so,
it's theater. It's theater.
And I'm like, is the real world like where there is a good hunk of these lawyers that are shady like that? Or is that something, some kind of fantasy we've created from television and stuff?
Well, so there was this long ethical narrative of it's a criminal case, and the attorney for the criminal is defending the criminal, and this is preliminary stages, and the judge calls up the attorney. He says, "Okay, winners, come on. I don't want to waste a lot of time here. Did your guy do it?"
Yeah.
Okay, so now the attorney has this ethical dilemma.
Sure.
Well, he's got to have required to have candor before the court. And so the bottom line was, it's unethical for the judge to ask that question. Therefore, it's okay for Mike to lie to him.
Okay. Interesting. So if you get an unethical question, you don't have to answer it truthfully and be just as in the clear.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So the interesting ethical dilemma, but that's the case where the attorney flat out lied to the judge.
So I guess it's basically the law's version of saying, if they're going to try to be shady on you, you have the right to be shady right back.
Sometimes.
Interesting. Well, do we have a little time for some some information? In fact, I just
fiction and fact.
Fiction and fact. I just saw we're 7:52 here, so we probably need to.
Oh my goodness.
To get to that point here.
Okay, so I like to hunt wild turkeys, and the tom turkeys have
actual turkeys, not the liquor that's sold on the shelf, not that wild turkey.
Well, that too.
But you have to hunt very hard for that one.
But the ones with feathers.
Yes.
So the toms have all these gorgeous feathers, and the color shifts depending on the light.
Okay.
And that's, of course, called iridescence.
All right.
So
I didn't do well in science either, but I understand the concept.
So in the moon, we have a new moon and a full moon, and in between, it's the crescent. So the SC in crescent and the SC in iridescence means movement.
Okay.
Some kind of movement's going on.
Okay.
Like ascend, descend, there's movement going on. And so I was really interested, well, what about the word discern?
Okay.
Because it's got the SC.
Yeah. So with the movement there.
The movement is you're splitting out, parceling out pieces.
Okay.
You're dividing this from that to discern what you need to know.
Okay.
That's the movement.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So just a tip there, when you see that combination of letters there, and obviously the Latin-based word, then odds are it's got a movement reference somewhere in it. And interesting.
Concupiscence.
Yeah.
Would be another idea of movement.
Okay.
With lusting is what that means.
Interesting.
Cupid.
Yeah.
Concupiscence.
Yeah.
Lusting.
Interesting.
Movement. Yeah.
Huh. I did not know that.
Fiction and fact.
There it is. If you just want more factoids or need actual legal help, Bristol Law Office, that's what they do. Log on to his website, bristoloffice.com. You can go there and set up an appointment or get everything you need to have a consultation and determine whether Matt needs to do more with you, or it's a simple, hey, go to the courthouse, file this paperwork, and you're good to go.
Or sometimes it's, hey, what you got is good, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Anyway, if you need the trusted eyes of someone looking over what you got, Matt can handle all of that stuff. And go to bristoloffice.com and set up that appointment.
Better call us at 625-5284.
Very good.
All right, Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you as well. We'll let you get to, I'm sure, the mountain of things sitting on your desk right now. Hopefully nothing too crazy there. So
hopefully not. And thank you again.
Anytime.